Liberal host Bill Maher raising concerns about Democrats' prospects in 2024 as President Biden's approval rating hits another low of 43%. Here to react, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Governor, I think I heard you laughing along there with the clip. You know, Bill Maher does have an independent streak, and we should point that out. I think he has been overwhelmingly a reliable liberal, but he has an independent streak, I think, different than other comedians. But he's not alone, Governor. It seems like the National Press Corps, in the wake of Joe Biden's press conference, began a transition into some skepticism. Why do you think now? Why do you think there's a little bit of tide turning? And I'll emphasize little bit, Governor, but a little bit of tide turning against Joe Biden with traditional support bases.
Well, one of the things, Bill Maher is an honest guy. You know, you may disagree with him, but he's saying what he really feels, and that's one of the charms of Bill Maher. But I think it can best be described in this way. There was a dog food company that was going to create what they thought was the greatest dog food in the world, and they assembled the best scientists to create the formula. They created the most amazing packaging. They had the most wonderful marketing and advertising campaign and the greatest sales force that had ever been considered. But the dog food was a complete disaster and flop, and it just didn't sell. And so the president of the company was trying to figure out why, and he asked the question, how come this isn't working? And finally, one of the people in the room said, "Sir, the dogs won't eat the dang stuff." What's happening to the Democrat Party is the people of America aren't eating this stuff. They know better. They know that the nonsense the Democrats have put forth is simply not going to work for America. Open borders, giving away our energy capacity, not having a military strength, and making blunderous decisions. All of these things are combined into making it for even Democrats where they say, this just isn't working.
So even Democrats, Governor, then let's ask this question. Do you think it is, I don't want to say possible because anything's possible, how likely do you think it is that Joe Biden does not represent the Democratic Party on their ticket for president in 2024?
I would say it's 99.99% that he will not be either running, and if he does, I don't think he'll be the nominee. I don't know that he can stand to go all the next 3 years. But even if he does, I don't see things changing so dramatically because I don't see Joe changing. Joe's caught between the far left of his party that he's trying to appease and more moderate Democrats who have simply decided the party has left them and they're becoming at least independents, and in more cases than not, they're becoming Republicans because they realize that inflation is outstripping their wages. They're losing ground, not gaining it, and the only reason they can point to it is because the Democrats and the far left are in power.
Well, okay, and really quickly on the way out here, then let's take up Bill Maher's conversation. I don't know then, and I'm going to turn to you. Where do you go? If Joe can't run, or if they swap out Joe or convince him not to run, where do you go? Kamala Harris's approval rating is 53% unfavorable. Pete Buttigieg doesn't seem like the answer. I don't think they can convince themselves that's the answer. Hillary Clinton, where do you turn?
I think they'll look for some effective Democrat governor. It's not going to be one of the far left. It may be Polis in Colorado, somebody that we don't even think about right now, but somebody who's a pragmatist, who's a problem solver, who's not an ideologue. That would be similar to what happened in 1992 when Bill Clinton from my home state of Arkansas emerged. He was a pragmatist. He was not an ideological kind of guy. And I think that's the only thing that Democrats can hope for. It won't be Hillary because she is ideological, but her husband wasn't. That's the only real hope they have. And when you lose Bill Maher, you've lost really a lot of the base of the Democrat Party. And I would say this would be the equivalent of having Ronald Reagan lose Nancy. You can't lose your key supporters and move forward. You've got to change course.
And, Governor, it'll be fascinating then to see how much sway the radical wings of that party, not just the AOCs and the Ilhan Omars, but even within the voting base, the ones that drive these far-left ideologies, have over the party then. Can they? That'll be the question. Can they actually turn to somebody pragmatic? And I don't know the answer to that moving forward. Governor, always great to talk to you this morning. Really fascinating. Thank you.
And thank you, Will. Go Cowboys. They're not in it, so neither am I. That's how I feel about it, and I know you do too. So I'm with you, brother.
I didn't know that, and now our relationship goes to a new level. That is big for me. I didn't know you were a Cowboy fan. Love it. All right, thanks,
Oh,
Governor.
Yeah.